Parshat Lech. Let's start with source number 1. ויבוא הפליט ויגד לאברהם העברי. And the refugee came. This is after the 5 kings against the 4 kings. There was a war. So the refugee came from the war and he told to Avram Ha'ivri, he told to Avram the Hebrew, that what? That Lot has been captured. Bereshit Rabbah says, Vayaged Avram Ha'ivri, and he told to Avram the Ivri. So Bereshit Rabbah is going to ask the question, what is this Ivri? What does the word Ivri mean? So he explains in Bereshit Rabbah, he brings Rabbi Yehuda. He says, Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol ha'ulam kulo me'ever echad vehu me'ever echad. It says, he was called Avram Ha'ivri. Ivri means on the other side, which means the entire world was on one side, and he was on the other side. Okay. Let's see what happened over there. Let's read it quickly. Source number 2. ויאמר השם אל אברהם, השם צא to Avram, לך לך מארצך וממולדתך ומבית אביך אל ארץ אשר אראך. God came to Avram, he says, go from your land, from your birthplace, from your father's place, to the land that I will show you. And then it's source number 3. This is where we're talking about how Lot was captured. ויקחו את לוט ואת רכושו. The kings took Lot and all his possessions. Ben Achi Avraham, who was the sons of the brother of Avram, וילכו, and they left. והוא יושב בסדום. And the reason why he was captured, because he was sitting in the city of Sodom, and once they captured Sodom, they captured Lot together with them. ויבוא הפליט ויגד לאברהם, came the refugee, he said to Avram, העברי, Avram the Hebrew, והוא שוכן באלוני ממרא. Where was Avraham? Avraham was in the plains of Mamre האמורי, a person called Mamre. אחי אשכול ואחי ענר, והם בעלי ברית אברהם. He had 2 brothers, Mamre, Eshkol, ve'enar, all 3 brothers, and they had an agreement with Avraham. They had a treaty. And then it says, Vayishma Avraham ki nishba achiv. Avraham heard that his brother was captured. Vayarek et chanichav. He armed all his pupils, Yelidei Beito, the one who were born in his house, 318. Vayirdof adan. And he chased them until a place called Dan. And Rashi it continues, Vayechalek alehem laila. When it came to the night, he divided on them, hu ve'avadav, him and his servants, Vayakem, and he beat the 4 kings, Vayirdefem ad Chova, and he chased them until a place called Chova, asher mismol leDamasek. Where is Chova? A little bit left of Damascus. And then what did he do? Vayashev et kol harechush. He returned all the possession. He recaptured everything they captured from Sodom. V'gam et Lot achiv. He took Lot back. V'rechusho, all his possession eshiv. V'gam et anashim v'gam et am. And all the people that were captured, he returned them. Okay? So this is Avraham. And we see that Avraham over here was actually successful. There was a world war, the first world war. By the way, this was exactly the First World War. There was no world wars until then. This was the biggest war that there ever been at that time. And it was 4 kings against the 5. The 4 kings won. And then we see how powerful Avraham was. Avraham was so powerful that he was able to defeat the 4 kings. The one who defeated the 5 kings. This is how powerful Avraham was. So you would think that Avraham right now changed the entire world. That's it. He captured the world. He's going to be the one that everybody is going to say, Avraham is the man. Let's all become like Avraham. Right? That's what you would think. You would think he's the biggest guy in the world. But we're going to see that's not what happened. Let's look at source number 4. Amru le'og. They said to Og. Og was a giant, Og melech habashan. Ha'im lo ha'ita omer, says, we remembered you once said, she'Avraham dome lepreda akara she'eino molida. So after all these things happened, they came to Og, they told him, remember you were talking once. What did you say? You said that Abraham is like a mule. What does it mean, a mule? He cannot give birth. He's not going to have a continuation. Abraham's way has no continuation. Amar lahem Og. So Og says, I still say. What do you mean I once said? I still say there's no continuation to Abraham. There's nothing there. Amar lahem mai matanato. So he says, and what do you think, he changed? You think Abraham changed something? He says, of course he changed. He says, what did he change? He says, what do you mean what you changed? He has Yitzchak. Look, this is Og was invited to the feast when Yitzchak was born. He says, look, there's Yitzchak. What do you mean there's nothing? Yitzchak is going to be continuation. Yitzchak is going to be the continuation of Abraham. This is Judaism. It's going to continue forever. Abraham is the greatest. So Og started laughing when he heard that Yitzchak is the continuation. What did he say? Halochen. He says, that's what you guys think, really? Is that what you think? Im asim et etzbai al Yitzchak arasek oto. It says, if one finger I put down on Yitzchak, I'm going to completely crush him. What do you think? Yitzchak can survive in this world? Think Yitzchak can change the world, you think? Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So God came to Og and God said to Og, Madua ta mezalzel b'matanato. Says God says, you're saying Yitzchak is a nobody. He can't do anything in the world. He cannot change the world. He's just one guy, a small little baby. Nothing can come out of him. חייך שאתה רואה 1,000 וריבי רבבות יוצאים מבני בניו. It says, in your lifetime, you're going to see hundreds of thousands of his offsprings. The guy you said is a nobody, right? It's not going to change the world. In your lifetime, you'll see he's a nobody. ואין סופך ליפול אלא בידו. And not only that, you know who's going to kill you? His offspring. It says, you think that you're going to survive forever, that you're the most powerful, and this Yitzchak is never going to change the world. I'm telling you exactly the opposite. First of all, you're going to see that it's going to become tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and his descendants are going to kill you. That's what he tells him. שנאמר, ויאמר השם אל משה, because it says that later on, when Moshe was conquering the Og, it says that Hashem said to Moshe, Al tira oto, don't be scared of Og, ki beyadcha natati vegomer, because I'm going to give him in your hand. Okay. In order to understand what's going on over here, we're going to discuss a philosophical problem that we have within the Jewish nation. So let's start. What's the philosophical problem within the Jewish nation? אחד הטענות נגד הנהגת בני ישראל על פי התורה. One of the complaints that people raise on the Jewish people, and it's a complaint according to the Torah. In the Torah, there's a rule. What's the rule? אחרי רבים להטות. It says you go by the majority. The majority of the people want you to act a particular way. That's what you do. You know, if 80% vote for Biden, or not Biden, for Kamala, we go with Kamala. If 80% vote for Trump, we vote for Trump. We don't say, no, let's do like the 20%. Yeah, we say the majority rules. Whoever is the most, that should be him. Right? He should rule the world. The guy who has the most. And over here, when it comes to the Jewish people, God says to the Jewish people, you know what? You guys are the most important. Oh, he says, you guys are the most important. And he tells us, you know why you're the most important? העובדה שאתם המעט מכל העמים. You know why you're the most important? Because you're the least of all the nations. Not because you're the most, because you're the least of all the nations. That doesn't make sense at all. That's the least important, not the most important. ושני פרטים בזה, and we have two problems with this. Number one, the first problem is, what do you mean? If we're the least of amongst the nation, first of all, we have a problem. Today, Jews in the world are probably 0.25%, I think. That's what we are. Imagine, the entire world, take 1%, take a quarter, I think that's how many Jews are in the world. It's nothing. It's like you can't even smell it. There's nothing there. So it's said. See, the problem is, how are you going to tell this 0.25% of Jews that live in the world that your job is to influence the entire world? That's what God tells us. He says, we have to be lights onto the nation. So it says, God, you want us to be lights? Let us conquer everybody. Like the Muslims. They go from one nation to another nation and conquer them. Let the Jews go from one nation to another nation and conquer them. God says, no. You're going to be little, and still I want you to what? To conquer everybody. So you can't. How do you want us to be lights onto the nation if 99.9% of the world doesn't even know we exist? How can we be that? So that's the first problem. כיצד יכולים לדרוש מהמיעוט לעמוד על עמדו נגד הרוב? How can you ask the minority to stand strong against all these people, against the majority? And number two, גם כאשר המיעוט יעמוד על עמדו נגד הרוב, even, let's say we stand strong. We are strong, we don't move from our viewpoint, the other nations do their stuff and we stand strong. דיים שיפקיעו את עצמם. In other words, the most that we can do is survive. We're not going to take over. The most we can do when we're so much, with 0. Less than 1%, what can we do? The most we can do, we can survive. You want us to go and conquer the world? That's impossible. And this is what Og was telling Abraham. You won't be able to conquer the world with this Yitzchak, with these Jews. What do you think? The Jews will ever be able to conquer the world? Impossible. וכיוון שכן, if this is so, מהי התועלת בעמידה נגד הרוב? How do we help the Jews act a certain way and the entire world act a different way? כאשר סוף סוף יישארו מיעוט בלבד. In the end, we're still going to be only the minority. Also when Mashiach comes. It's not that when Mashiach comes, everybody's going to become Jewish. No. There's going to be billions and billions and trillions of people. And we're going to be still 1%, less than 1%. So what are we doing? What's this whole thing all about? That's the question. ובפרטיות יותר. Let's go deeper into the story. Page number 3. המיעוט של בני ישראל הוא לכל הראש ביחס לכל העמים. It says, the Jewish people are a minority compared to all the nations of the world. Like it says, אתם המעט מכל העמים. We are the fewest, we're the least from all the nation. ובפרט על פי הידוע. And one more thing doesn't make sense in the whole thing. If you're going to tell us our job is to make sure that everybody's going to become Jewish, then we understand. That's our job. So you start slowly, but slowly and surely you make everybody Jewish. But you know what God says? God says no. שהסדר אצל בני ישראל הוא שאינם מחפשים אחר גרים. God tells them, we're not going to look for converts. See, Christianity is looking for everybody to become Christians. The Muslims are looking for everybody to become Muslims. The Jews, maybe we should also look that everybody should become Jewish. God says no. They don't have to become Jewish. What do you want from them? Let them remain Goyim. Let them remain Gentiles. There's no purpose in them becoming Jewish. ולא אכפת להם שלא יתווספו גרים וישארו המעט מכל העמים. We're the only religion. Think about it. From all the religions in the world, when it comes to Judaism, the only one who doesn't go around and ask for people to come and join is whom? It's us. Not only we don't ask people to come to join, we give them a hard time when they do want to join. Yeah? If somebody does want to join, we say, no, you shouldn't, wait, maybe it's not good for you, think about it, we push it, we give them a hard time. What's going on over here? And that's how you want us to conquer the entire world? Umash Bagrana is going to ask a question. Hold on one second. In the Gemara it says, Lo hegla hakadosh baruch hu et Yisrael leben haumot, that God took the people, the Jewish nation, and he put us amongst the other nation. He exiled us from the land of Israel, and he put us all over the world. Why? Ela kedei sheyitvasvu aleim gerim. It says in order for that we are going to have converts. Yeah? So how do you understand that? So it says, no, you don't understand the problem. That's not what it means. So what does it mean? מבואר בחסידות, it's explained in Chassidus, שאי אפשר לפרש שהכוונה היא לגרים כפשוטו. That you cannot say that it means converts. Because think about it. On every convert, once we are amongst the other nations, once God took the Jewish people, for example, take America, right? Once God put the Jews in America, for every one person, for every convert, for every Gentile that converts to Judaism, there's 10,000 that what? That become Gentiles. It's not worth it. Yeah? You put us into the nations and you're saying what? So that we can have more converts. You know what's happening? We're losing Jews into the nations. We're not having more. So that cannot be. שהרי מספר הגרים שהתווספו אצל בני ישראל, because the few converts that were added by the Jewish people, אינו לפי ערך מספר בני ישראל שגלו לבין האומות. It's negligible compared to as many Jews that were. So if you're going to tell me, you know what, you bring a million Jews into America, and then these million Jews are going to put 2 million, they're going to bring 2 million Gentiles, you know, into Judaism, they will tell you, okay, maybe that makes sense. But how many do it? 10,000 for this million. And then from this million, God forbid, how many go off and intermarry and then they're not Jews anymore after a few generations? It doesn't make sense. That's not the purpose that God put us into the nations. So why does it say שהתווספו עליהם גרים, that we're going to have more converts? אלא הכוונה היא לקיום התורה והמצוות בדברים הגשמיים שבעולם. The converts that the Gemara is talking about is refining the physical world. That's the converts. Converting the world into spirituality. שעל ידי זה שעושים מהגשמיות רוחניות. By us taking a mitzvah, taking money, for example, or taking a cow and making it into Sefer Torah, making it into tefillin, שזהו עניין של גירות. This is what it means conversion. We convert the world. שלוקחים דבר גשמי, we take a physical object, שמצד עצמו אינו שייך ליהודים ויהדות, it's a cow. A cow has got nothing to do with Judaism. What is a cow? A cow is a cow, it goes moo. כמאמר רז"ל, just like the sages says, שיעקב ועשיו התחלקו ביניהם. It says, Yaakov and Esav divided the world between them. What was the division? Esav לקח את העולם הזה הגשמיות. Esav says, I want the physical world, I want the pleasures of the world. ויעקב לקח עולם ברוחניות. And Yaakov took the next world, the spiritual world. And what do? We take the physical world of Esav and we convert it to become spiritual. In other words, we take a cow and we make it into tefillin. We take our business and we use it in order to open up schools, open up hospitals, help other people, and so on and so forth. Page number 4. יתרה מזו. We're going to have this problem even more problematic now. בנוגע לכל אחד מישראל גופה, when it comes to the Jew himself, it says, you know what? So we are just a few amongst the many. There's hardly any Jews compared to the world. Doesn't exist, the Jew. Besides that, in your personal life, in our personal life, God hardly exists. The Jewish part of us hardly exists. What does it mean? Let's explain. הזמן שמוקדש לעניינים רוחניים, the time that we dedicate for spiritual things, הוא מיעוט לגבי הזמן שמוקדש לעניינים הגשמיים. It is almost nothing compared to the time that is dedicated to physical things. Yeah? For example, out of the day, how much time do we dedicate for God and how much time do we dedicate for ourselves, for business? 95% is for what? For us, for the physical world, maybe 5% if we're lucky. Yeah, maybe 5%. Some people not even 5%. Yeah, most Jews in the world, I don't know, maybe on Shabbos they come to shul to do you a favor. Besides that, every day, where do you have? If they're religious, there's a little bit more. But even the religious people, most of the day, what do? They work. Yeah, religious, not religious. What do? Most of the day, what are you busy with? The physical world. It's just nothing. So you want to tell me that little bit that you hang with God is going to change the person? Is going to do something? The Yitzchak, this little baby. It says, Og, the Gashmius, the physical world, is going to come with his finger and he's going to crush it. It's not going to survive. בנוגע לאבות, אמרו חז"ל, when it comes to our forefathers, the sages says, האבות הן המרכבה, that the forefathers were the chariot. ומבואר בתניא, it's brought down in תניא, שכל איבריהם כולם היו קדושים ומבדלים מן העולם הזה. That the forefathers, every second of the day, they dedicated to whom? To God. It wasn't like us. If Abraham worked, the work itself he put, it's for God. He didn't work for himself to eat, to drink. He worked, what was the eating and drinking of Abraham? To feed the people so that they will teach him about God. That was what Abraham, his entire life was God, 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 God. ולא נעשו מרכבה רק לרצון העליון לבדו כל ימיהם. In other words, the entire days, every second of their life, they dedicated every second to God. ובספר חסידות בכתב יד מוסיף, in the book of Hasidus, it's written, אפילו בשנתם, it says, even when they dreamt. See, when you dream, they dreamt how they can serve God. All the time, that was their anything. כלומר, שיהודי יכול להעמיד את עצמו במעמד ומצב כזה שאפילו בעת השינה. It says, they reach the level that even at the time of their sleep, at the time of the sleep, when the neshama goes back to its source, יהיה מרכבה לאלוקות. They still, even that little bit neshama that was them, you know what it was looking for? It was looking for God. כך שכל מציאותו וכל ענייניו הם רוחניות וקדושה. The entire being was holiness. Because that's very nice. By whom? By Abraham, by Yitzchak, by Yaakov maybe. But people like me and you, 99% of the time we are with what? With the physical world. We're not with God. אבל אצל אנשים כערכנו, but people like us, המציאות בפועל ממש היא שלא נמצאים במעמד ומצב נעלה כזה. We don't find ourselves so elevated like the forefathers. ולא עוד, but by us, העניינים הרוחניים הם מעט לגבי העניינים הגשמיים. By us, spirituality is tiny little bit compared to the physicality. Just like the number of Jews in the world compared to the number of Gentiles in the world, the amount of time we use for spirituality compared to the amount of time we use for physicality. It's the same thing even in our daily life. ובפרט בימינו אלו, especially in our days, בזמן הגלות, when we're in exile, חושך כפול ומכופל בגשמיות, and this now, we're double exile, שמורה על החושך כפול ומכופל ברוחניות, הרי בוודאי שבמצב, שבזמן ומצב כזה, חושך כפול ומכופל של הגלות, העניינים הרוחניים הם מעט לגבי גשמיים. So by us, for sure, the spiritual things are tiny compared to the physical things. במילא נשאלת השאלה, so again the question that we asked in the beginning, we can ask again, כיוון שאתם המעט מכל העמים, since we're so few in numbers and in time that we give to God, ולא רק מכל העמים, אלא גם אצל כללות ישראל ואצל כל אחד, מישראל גופה, העניינים הרוחניים הם מעט לגבי גשמיים, just like we said, not just in numbers, but also in our times that we dedicate to God, the majority is for physicality, and only tiny minority goes for God. מהי התועלת בגלות המלחמה? It says, we're fighting against an orc. We're fighting against a giant. What? The fact that once in a while we do something, we come to a class over here, we come to a class over there, that's going to change the world? That has the power to change? על קיום התורה והמצוות בידור, רק בשעה שסוף כל סוף נשארים רק מיעוט לגבי הרוב. In the end, you know what's going to happen? We need to go to work, and we need to take care of physicality, and we're still going to spend 10 hours a day working, and only, half an hour studying, if we're lucky. So how are we going to conquer this world this way? Okay, page number 6. So now the Rebbe is going to explain to us this. By the way, the Sicha was said in 1951, a few years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, after the atomic bomb. And the Rebbe is going to bring down the power of the atom to explain this concept. So let's see. והתירוץ הזה. So the explanation, how can just a few little moments of the day can influence your entire day? It's impossible. You want to tell me that this half an hour that we use for God is going to overrule the 23 and a half hours that we use for ourselves? How is that possible? You want to tell me that the tiny piece of Jews that are in the world are going to influence the entire world? It's impossible. So the Rebbe says, no, you're wrong. It is possible. How? והתירוץ על זה, the explanation for this, מחידוש שנתגלה לאחרונה בחוכמות חיצוניות בנוגע לאטום. We're going to see it in science when it comes to the atom. בעבר הייתה הדעה הרווחת. In the past, if you're going to ask me, who's going to win the war? Russia or England? Russia or Germany? You know what the answer was? Yeah? Depends, where's the biggest army? You tell me how many soldiers the Russians have. Tell me how many soldiers the Germans have. And I will tell you. Tell me how many tanks the Russians have. Tell me how many tanks the Germans have. And I will tell you. Strategy can help a little bit over here, a little bit over there. But you know who wins the war? The one with the bigger army. That was in the past. That's the way it used to be. The guy with the bigger army, he's going to win the war. Yeah? In other words, הדעה הרווחת שכמות היא מוגבלת והאיכות היא בתמת להגבלת הכמות. It says, it depends of how big an army you can manufacture. If you can manufacture 100 tanks, you're going to be bigger than an army, than a country that can manufacture 50 tanks. You're going to be able to conquer them. That's what the people thought. ובמילא כדי לפעול דבר גדול ביותר, יש צורך בריבוי גדול של כמות. So if you want to conquer the entire world, you need more tanks than everybody else. Simple. That's how the world thought until when? Until 1945. 1945 this whole thing changed. אבל בתקופה האחרונה נתגלה בחוכמות חיצוניות שלא הכמות היא הקובעת. All of a sudden, 1945, when Hiroshima and Nagasaki, after the war, when brought down, the two bombs was brought down in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the bomb itself, all of a sudden, you don't need an army. I need 2 planes with 2 bombs, and these 2 planes and 2 bombs are more powerful than, you know what, how much? The whole army. 1 bomb. 1 bomb and I can finish everybody. 1 plane, 1 bomb. That's it. ואין צורך בריבוי כמות. All of a sudden, you don't need such a big army. It's 1 bomb can take care of the entire world. אלא העיקר הוא לגלות את כל האיכות שנמצאת בכמות. Says, how do you do it? You reveal all the power that is within this object. When you reveal everything, all the power that's within this object, then you can control the world. לגלות את הכוחות הנעלמים שבכמות שיבוא מן ההיעלם והסתר אל הגילוי. You take uranium, plutonium, I don't know what the bombs were, yeah? And you split the atom, you take the atom and you split, and the energy that it creates, just taking the atom and cutting it, that energy that is created is going to be more than 5,000 tanks, more than 5 million tanks. Just in 1 little kilogram of matter. ואז מספיקה גם כמות קטנה ביותר בשביל לפעול עניינים גדולים. All of a sudden, this one, imagine how much TNT, or how many bombs from a tank, the shells that the tells there, how many shells you need in order to do one bomb? Maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000, maybe 30,000. The same effect as one bomb. Yeah? You need 30,000 shells in order for one bomb. Maybe more. Maybe not even. Yeah? התגלית שנתגלה בחכמות חיצוניות היא, so what did they find out in science? שעל ידי חלוקת האטום, that when you split the atom לחלקים קטנים ביותר, to small tiny matters, יכולים להפיק כוח ואנרגיה בשביל לפעול כמה וכמה עניינים, שבעבר יסבורים שבזה יש צורך בכמות גדולה ביותר חומר גשם. If you would ask me how many planes you need to take the whole city of Nagasaki to erase it, and how many bombs, I will tell you, for that you need like 10,000 planes, and you need like 50,000 bombs. Yeah? All of a sudden, I don't need anything. I need just one bomb. Boom. The whole thing is gone. כלומר, what does it mean? לא הכמות היא הקובעת. It's not the amount that matters. כי אם ניצול כל האיכות שיש, you have to have one object, one bomb, and you have to take all the energy out. Once you take all the energy out from just this one thing, one little thing, that's it, it's enough. אפילו בכמות קטנה ביותר, even if you have a tiny little thing, ולא עוד, אלא שניצול האיכות התמונה בכמות היא על ידי חלוקתו לחלקים קטנים יותר. In other words, until now you wanted to have a bigger army. What did you have to do? You have to build bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger tanks and bigger and bigger and bigger bombs. Now, if you want to make an atomic bomb, you know what you have to do? Exactly the opposite. You have to cut the material into tiny, tiny, tiny. The tinier you're going to cut the atom, the more boom you're going to have. In other words, if you're not going to cut the atoms, you're not going to have the boom. The boom comes from splitting the atom, from cutting this little thing. That's what causes the whole explosion. שמשמעותה של חלוקה זה היא הביטול מהישות שלו. In other words, you're going to take this material and you're going to destroy it. And the destruction of the material is going to cause what? Going to create energy. ואז יכולים על ידי כמות קטנה ביותר לפעול דברים גדולים ביותר. And then, by taking a small little amount of something, you can explode the entire world. אלא, but the Rebbe continues, שכיוון שעניין זה נתגלה בחוכמות חמצוניות שתת הקליפת, as this was discovered from the aspect of the negative, the klipa discovered it, לכן השימוש הראשון שנעשה בזה היא להרס ולחורבן. Therefore, the first time they used the atomic bomb was to destroy things. That's what it was used, for destruction. אבל במשך הזמן, but the Rebbe says, but as we know, and since then we see, that nuclear plants has been creating energy for millions of people. אבל במשך הזמן, בוודאי השתמשו בזה לבניין ותיקון. You can use it for the positive, for beneficial, constructive ways. ובכל אופן, nevertheless, כבר עכשיו יכולים ללמוד מזה מוסר השכל. So this was said in 1951, and the Rebbe says, already now we can learn something from it. שאין להתפעל מהעובדה שאתם המעט מכל העמים. Until now we thought the fact that we're just less than 1% of the world, how can we influence the world? It says, you're absolutely wrong. You can influence the world, just like an atomic bomb. The smaller it is, the more cuts you put into it, the bigger the explosion. כשמגלים את הכוחות הנעלמים שמטמונים במעט, when we discover the energy that is found within these small little Jewish people, כוח המסירות נפש, which power? The power to nullify oneself, the power to be completely subservient to God. This is the atom. יש בכוחה של כמות קטנה ביותר, אטום אחד. Now we have the power, even in one atom, to turn over an entire city. In other words, one Jew can influence an entire country. עניין זה מודגש בעבודתו של אברהם אבינו היהודי הראשון. In this we can see from the beginning in the work of Avraham Avinu. כתיב הצוויתן, אחד היה אברהם, Abraham was one, אחד ויחידי. He was the only one. וכנגדו התייצב כל העולם. And Abraham was on one side, and on the other side there was the entire world. And you can see what this one person is going to change the entire world. The entire world is so much bigger than him. כדרשת חז"ל פסוק, ויהי כל הארץ שפה אחת ודברים אחידים. And when it comes to the Migdal Babel, to the Tower of Babel, all the other nation, it says something very strange. It says the whole land was one language, ודברים אחדים, and דברים אחדים, and one things. But ודבר אחד צריך להיות כתוב. It needs to, and one thing. But it says, what does it say? דברים and אחדים. What do you mean אחדים? אחדים means many. Yud mem in the end in the Hebrew means there's many achads. Many achads? What are you talking about? How can you have many achads? Echad means one. שאמרו דברים חדים. So the explanation of this, what does it mean דברים אחדים? How many ones do you have? שאמרו דברים חדים, because the word said sharp language. On what? על שני אחדים. There were two ones in the world. Who were the two ones in the world? על השם אלוקינו השם אחד. The one God was one. ועל אחד היה אברהם. And on the fact that Abraham was only one. So the entire world was against whom? Against Abraham and against God. Says God's way is not going to matter and Abraham's way is not going to survive. We are going to survive. Not Abraham's way, not God's way. ונקרא אברהם העברי, and now we call him Abraham, the Hebrew, the other side, על שם שכל העולם כולו מעבר אחד והוא מעבר אחר. The entire world was on one side and he was on the other side. ואף על פי כן, and nevertheless, even though that Abraham was one, and Og ruled the world, he was the giant, and Og, if he would have put his finger on Yitzchak, Yitzchak would have been gone. Nevertheless, who won in the end? We did. Like it says, Echad היה Abraham, as it says, one was Abraham, and this one Abraham, ירש את הארץ, is going to inherit the entire land. היינו שבהיותו אחד ויחידי, even though he was one. כבש את העולם כולו. He conquered the entire world. Come out to the world today. Is there any place in the world? Let's take an example. Take a guy from Egypt. Yeah, take a guy from, you know what? Take the Maya. You know, over here in America, take the Maya. A guy from Maya. It was a whole civilization. Right? A whole civilization. The whole civilization. Can you tell me anything about somebody that lived 3,000 years ago? Do you know anything about them? You know, the entire world knows who Avram is. Anyway, no. Even if you go to India, the Hindus, yeah, they heard, they all the time fight with the Muslims. So they know that Abraham is the father of Ishmael, who's the Muslims. Everybody knows who's Abraham. Abraham conquered the entire world. There's no such place on earth today that Abraham is not known. Not only that Abraham is not known, the court system in the entire world is based on whom? Is based on the children of Abraham. Everything, the entire world is based on us. שהרי לא נאמר וירש זרעו כשנעשו רבים את הארץ, אלא וירש הוא בעצמו. It says Abraham itself inherited the entire land when he was still one. How did he inherit the land? על ידי זה שויקרא שם בשם השם כל עולם, that we know the famous story that Abraham, he opened up an inn, and anybody who came up to the inn, he introduced him, he told him to thank God for all the good. He introduced him, there is such thing as God. So it says, Al tikra vayikra ela vayakri. It says, don't read vayikra, read, he called out. In other words, he made the name of God famous in the world. היינו, שלא יסתפק בכך שהוא בעצמו ידע שהכל כל עולם. It wasn't enough for him that he knew that God is the master of the universe, אלא התחיל לעמוד לקרוא בקול גדול לכל העולם. He made sure that everybody in the world is going to know that God is the master of the universe. וכל מי שפגש, אפילו ערבי, and anybody he found, even an Arab, פעל עליו שגם הוא יכריז השם כל עולם. He made sure that he knows that God is the master of the universe. This is what Abraham was. And in other words, what do we see? That it's true that we only spend with God a few minutes of our day every day, not the majority of the time. But that few minutes of the day has the power of the atom. It has much more power than the entire day of the physical world, because it has the power of the atomic bomb. That's what it is. It's, even though it's minute, it's just a little bit of the time we spend with God, that little bit is like a bomb. It is more powerful than all the armies that Og brings, and the nations bring, and the physicality brings, and our desire brings. Just the fact that the person, a Jew, put on tefillin once a day, that's all he did. That in itself has more power than all the Yetzer Hara he has the entire day. That just one time he put on tefillin, now he has more power in his life, more godly in his life than the entire, even though the rest of the day he was by the casino. That one little act saved him from everything else.